My wife knows me for over 10 years. She knows everything about me. She fully supports what I do. And still, I use headphones at night to listen to my audiobooks, so she doesn't know what I'm into. That's not about her. That's about something else entirely. That fear is something you built a long time ago, and it's still running in the background, even though there's zero proof for it. To prove to you that this fear is completely in your head, let me expand a little bit on the headphone story. My wife and I, we know each other for over 10 years, and she fully supports what I'm doing, and she knows me as much as I know her. And still, I have this fear in my head, this fear of not feeling fully supported, so I still want to hide something as small as what audiobook I listen to, because I fear to be seen as a child. You could argue maybe I fear that she wakes up or that she can't sleep. That's not true. She can, she routinely put on the TV to fall asleep. So for her, having an audiobook running in her third language just is white noise. And she told me that. And still, I feel the fear of being judged. Quick side note on that. She's the only one I've ever told about this YouTube project. Nobody else knows. I told never anybody, because I feel that I'm being judged. A second part of this basically is, I think I fear being the center of attention. And again, this is not about other people. This is about what's in my head. Because on our wedding, there's everybody's seated already on their tables before eating and everything. And we, as the wedding couple, come in last to sit on the special table to our wedding song. Normal wedding stuff. I was terrified of that, because that means I'm the center of attention. Everybody will look at me. And this is so stupid, because that day is all about us as a couple. It's all about me. That's how a wedding works. There's nobody there ever in the history of weddings that thinks like, how extra of him to come in after everybody else, when that's a completely normal thing to do on weddings. That's the entire point of the day. Where I'm going with this is, there is no actual threat. There is no outside judgment. All of this fear of being judged, all of this fear of trying to assimilate and really not stand out at all, it's not coming from the outside. It's coming from inside of us, inside of me. Look, let me prove further that this fear of being judged and this need to camouflage comes from really deep inside us. This is happening since I'm a child. As a teenager, I really was hiding the music I was listening to my parents. I mean, to an extent, that is normal teenage behavior, but I never had this super rebellious, I will listen to really loud music at home phase. I always wanted to keep it really concealed, to avoid being judged. I did had a group of friends I was really tight with, and where I could be who I was. And that group, they were kind of like outcasts themselves. I was doing a lot of like skateboarding in my teenage years, and this skateboard crew consists of all different ages. And most people I knew there were older than me. And they were very they were just very much themselves. They didn't really care how to be judged. But back in school, that was a whole different story. There, I had really not that many friends. I really wanted to be as invisible as possible, because I felt I could not be myself. So in effect, I had like two separate versions of myself back then. One where I could really be myself. I didn't have to perform. And another one where I constantly was hiding who I was and constantly was adjusting. And I think that split and these experiences where all this fear and this behavior started, I think that's an actual thing. You can research that. Like experiences where you got rejected a lot and where you then in return had the feeling and the need to try to camouflage yourself and act as somebody else, to camouflage and blend in as much as possible, that really shapes how you think about that. And really, you keep that deep inside you and you carry that your whole life. And it weirdly automatically activates whenever similar situation comes up, kind of like a sleeper agent, and suddenly you're 15 years old again and you act exactly the same, even though logically, that doesn't make any sense. How does that show up as an adult? Like when this sleeper agent side of you gets activated. For me, I worked basically my whole life in hospitality with specialty coffee, as a barista in coffee shops. That was my career. That is a path most people don't really take seriously. For most people, being a barista or working in hospitality in general is not really a career path. That's something people do while they're in college. And then, whatever. That's just something you do when you're a child, when you're a teenager, temporarily. So I was not really taken seriously. I always felt really weird telling people what I do for a living. That only changed a little bit when I opened up my own coffee shop, because then I was not just a barista, I was not just in hospitality, then I was like a business owner, and that was respectable for some reason, So that shows up like that. And now I'm doing content for a language school. I'm doing more creative work. I'm doing this YouTube channel. And people also now ask me like, oh, what you do now? Did you, made another shop? Do you open another business? And it's like, no, I'm doing a little bit more creative stuff. I'm creating content for this language school. And they just skip over that completely and say like, oh, so you're a teacher, because that is like the first real thing they can think of, being a teacher. So they hear learning language school and go to teacher. Again, that is where I then feel very, very self-conscious and very weird and get very defensive and try to really explain, no, well, I'm not just doing the content, I'm also managing the marketing strategy. So it's more marketing. And yeah, well, kind of true, but come on. That's just me being very defensive again. So it's the very same fear that really shaped when I was a child, as a teenager, in a new shape, in new clothing. It manifests itself again, like, oh, they're judging me right now for my work, and will they even understand what I'm doing? And I have to really come up with a different way of explaining it. Why? It's stupid, but that's how that manifests itself. The thing is, you can't argue your way out of other people's approval. Chances are they don't really approve of you in any way. They don't judge you. You judge yourself. The fear was never about them. It was never external. To really push through that, you have to build your own proof, and you have to do it repeatedly. You have to really deliver on the proof that standing out, being different, doesn't really bring the rejection. The fear keeps telling you, You know, the fear is in your head telling you, oh, if I'm different, if I actually show up as who I am, people will judge me, people will reject me, people will treat me differently or worse. And the more you actually show up as yourself, the more proof you will build that actually nothing happens. The contrary will happen. People will actually like you. You know, like, oh, I like that. I have the same hobby, or I listen to the same audiobook as you do, or I never listened to audiobooks, but now that I listened to your audiobook at night, I actually kind of like it. So I will keep, like pick it up myself. This will take a long time. I'm not going to lie to you, because this fear is not actually tied to something external. You know, when you have like a big fear of spiders, you can make like exposure therapy and eventually, like have a spider in your hand or get closer to them, something like that. That's like an external fear. But these internal fears is a war, and with your own brain, there's nothing external to latch onto. So it will take a long time, and at times it will feel nothing changes and you will feel really, really defeated and down. But keep in mind, there's always a dip, and it will get better from there. The more proof you show yourself. Additionally, the thing you're scared of most, or the thing you try to hide the most, that is often the exact thing that makes you stand out the most. And not in a bad way. Your uniqueness will stand out the most. With that, you will attract like-minded people that share your interests, that share your hobbies, and people you can actually connect with on a way deeper level than when you try to shut that uniqueness down. So I think everybody has like this headphone audiobook moment where they do very, very irrational things to try to hide something because they have like a fear that is deeply rooted in the past and gets activated. I would love to hear yours. Maybe you have also one of these things. Let me know in the comments. Until then, I'm Johannes. Thank you so much for spending some time with me. See you next time. Take care.